Welcome back to the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, K Mo. We'll have two guests on this evening to how to get to where we are. Welcome back to the Brother to Brother Show. I'm your host, K Mo. How did I get here? So basically, I've been having a series for the last couple of weeks in this month to talk to men about how did they get here. But today, a specific day, I actually have on two guests. We're going to talk about how they got here, and with the special guest that we're coming on, we're talking about how did I get my husband. And so how did you bag your husband? And so what does that look like? And so, Brother Jackson, thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me, K-Ball.
Yeah. So we had a really good conversation. I got a lot of good feedback from our conversation as well. And so I just want to say thank you for being on, having an opportunity to speak about your chances and how you got to where you are today and being a husband, right? So can you tell our listeners who didn't get a chance to listen to us last week, who you are and just a little bit about yourself?
Okay, Odell Jackson. I'm a 20-year veteran. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm an uncle, /stepdad to my nieces and nephews. I'm working in the IT profession as of right now after my life after the military. And I'm just somebody that's out here trying to help get this world, relationships, and everybody together.
Absolutely. So, we had a really good conversation about what that relationship looked like with you and your wife. Right. You also gave some good feedback to some gentlemen and men who are really trying to find their places in this dating world that we live in. Mm-hmm. And so you also mentioned some issues that you've heard from other people within the spaces of relationships. I'm gonna have you go into it, but before I do that, the reason why this is so important is because we actually have your wife on today. So PJ, Miss Jackson, can you please come on, introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm PJ, wife to Odell. We've been married for 15 years together, 18. So I've been his spouse throughout his military career, as well as my own career as a cyber analyst. I'm a mom, wife, sister, aunt, BFF.
Everything. Keep going. Yeah, absolutely. So, I praised you so much, especially when Odell was having a conversation about even how he met you. I didn't know a lot of that, but even my own individual conversations with you, I can't remember our complete conversations, but when he was speaking about who you were as an individual, I could see that just meeting you for the first couple of times and having that relationship. Like I was so just and having a conversation with him offline. Seeing you all as a young couple and seeing you all progress and seeing the kids to be the way they are right now, they are happy to have you all, to be the parents that you are today. But before we got to be parents, right, we want to talk about the relationship piece to that. And one of the questions I asked Odell last week was, I know that you all have had conversations with other couples or just people, especially women who are trying to date in this world of a very hookup culture. What are some of the issues that you've heard from single friends that are dating for marriage? This is directly specifically for you.
For me, as far as I've heard, I get two sides of it. Of course, as a woman, it's just a lack of available men, a lack of availability of men who want to be committed. And then the other part is because me and Odell were met at a young age, and when you get older, it is a little bit different. So what are your priorities? Are they matched up, trying to find someone, I guess, quote unquote, equally yoked? So it's just, I guess, to sum it all up, is do we have enough in that pool to pick out of, as far as dating and who to date and what that needs to look like, And, where do you compromise at?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what is some of the advice that you've given those people, especially, because I have friends who've gotten married at an earlier age too, and you're a different person now too.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, I think you
mm-hmm.
can, if you're taking yourself out of the marriage pool and you're putting yourself back when you were that
Oh yeah.
age, what does that look like now? Because you're a different
Oh
person,
yeah.
you've grown so much, but you're still wanting what you want.
I tell people all the time that me and Odell have had many divorces, and so to speak, because I'm not the 21-year-old that he met. I'm not her. I had to learn who I was as well. But as far as the question goes, is what do I advise? I just ask them something that I was told was to understand your non-negotiables. There are things in life, in your career, relationship, whatever, that you just don't want to negotiate, and that you can't compromise. Identify what that is, and then find that partner who can, you can manage your expectations properly. Um, when we were younger, of course, some of my things that I just didn't think about a lot of stuff. When you get older, I think you think about more. You think about, well, money, finances, or even how someone dresses, or, things like that. I think that you pay close attention to it because it aligns with you. And I think that as we get older, our ego gets in the way a lot more. And not ego as in everyone is headstrong, but you start to question what things may look like versus, again, where you can compromise at. If you're compromising something, but your focus is to, well, I worry about what people think.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for me, height was a non-negotiable, right? I'm
Okay.
I'm I'm 5'3.5".
Mm-hmm.
I have some things that I feel like it's not right. Like, if my girlfriend next to me is like, well, I don't care what height he is. That just was
Mm-hmm.
my
Right.
non-negotiable, right? But if I often wonder at 40, would
Right.
I compromise that?
Right.
Because
Right.
my priorities would be different. I
Right.
may be like, girl, as long as he can open the door or
Right.
what, you know what
Right.
I mean?
Right. 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 Right.
So I do think at times as you go on with life, you
Mm-hmm.
find out what you really need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. Awesome. So I'm gonna bring him back in too, right? So I'm gonna restate the questions that I asked him last week. And
okay.
with that, I'm gonna see if it's almost like a small game. See if you remember that time or understand, or you can respond on it. But I'm gonna have him if I say it right, okay, Odell. So please make sure if I'm saying anything wrong. So the first question I wanted to ask was, what are your top three things you look for in a marriage? And one of the things he talked about was, I'm not going to verbatim say it, but he mentioned that you had a strong relationship with your stepfather. He
Hmm.
mentioned your stepfather. He said that your stepfather pretty much put you on game. That was
Yeah.
his words.
Yeah.
And he said that he had a great insight and support and influence at an earlier age on you, that actually was put a lot on him when you all were dating, and so that's what
Hmm.
he felt and experienced. So what are your thoughts on that? Did I miss anything, Odell?
No, you hit it pretty
Okay.
on that.
What were your thoughts during that time, if you can go back to that time, and what made
Oh
you
yeah.
feel like you were different than your peers with the information that your stepfather was giving you? And when I'm saying that specifically because apparently there was some male role model in your life, because
Hmm.
I hear a lot of women who say they have daddy issues, mother issues, whatever the
Hmm.
case may be. But you actually had a father figure in your life who was
Hmm.
helping you and grooming you and pushing you towards to obviously find somebody in the same realm that was marriage minded as well, even though we are young and we're still trying to
Hmm.
figure out. Go back to that time when you were 22 and tell
Hmm.
me, what do you feel like you did differently than your peers?
Um, First off, when I was 22, I wasn't looking for marriage. I wasn't. I didn't fantasize about that. But I would say that my stepfather, who I call my dad, I think our relationship was unique in a sense because um, the way he came into my life early on. But he always pushed accountability, and he was very honest. So I'm not the apple in his eye, so to speak. So I don't have that typical, happy-go-lucky relationship from a father figure. So he was very direct, and accountability was definitely pushed, but it was from a place of love. And so he always asked us to be honest. And sometimes it doesn't feel good. You know, it was times where it didn't feel good to receive it, but he didn't want me to be too dependent on a man. But he also put me in my, I guess, so to speak, put me in line and put me in my place when I was attacking Odell's ego, right? And again, I don't want to say ego in the sense where, you know, just him as a young man, right? Like I didn't understand what he didn't have versus what I had. I had an assumption, like, okay, he's a dude. He watched basketball. He should know how to fix a car. You know, that wasn't Odell's story. And so when I had these expectations or these ideas of what he should be, my dad understood what that looked like, and he understood that void that Odell had, and he was able to kind of, you know, speak to me from that perspective, and just also give me an idea of how I can support him in that. You know, like I think oftentimes we just think about what we should receive. And case in point is we were young 20 somethings. We had the money, so we go get we got a Denali or something like that. And I think something minor needed to be changed. Now, mind you, my stepfather and my grandfather, my mom's dad, they're very instrumental in my life. So those are the two male figures that I had. So I would go with them. When my dad had to fix the car, it's 6 of us. I'm the oldest, so I'm out there with him, you know. When my grandfather has something or my uncle, they take me. So I assumed that I never considered what Odell didn't have, right? So we had a situation where the car was messed up, and you know, he told me it was brakes, and he paid an extreme amount of money. And I'm like, what the hell? Why are you spending this much money? I'm getting mad. And then he's getting mad because I can only assume, Odell, that he felt like, damn, I don't know, but damn, you gotta talk to me like that, you know? And so I'm mad. I called my dad, like, can you believe that? And he was like, well, where's he gonna get it from? He's like, you know, he kind of broke down to me how he learned, you know. And so I had to, and oftentimes I'll go back to that because there are things about me that Odell experienced that I didn't experience, you know, and that he was gentle enough with me, you know. So I think that, yes, my father was instrumental in that. And I think that accountability and just being able to see the vulnerability in a man in a different perspective at a young age was beneficial, you know.
Awesome. Thank you. You want to add anything to that, Odell? Do you remember that those breaks?
I remember it. All we needed was brake pads to be replaced, but me not having a car growing up. My mom, prior to my stepdad coming into my life at a teenage, I was like about 12, maybe 12, 13, coming into my life. He the only one that had a car. My mom never had a car. She still doesn't drive to this day. So I never sat in the front seat of the car to even learn how to drive. Definitely didn't know how to fix one. So I went down to Meineke, I'll never forget, in Atlanta. I said, I need all new brakes.
Oh,
so
man.
The guy set me up for a lifetime brakes. All new brakes, motors and everything. Came out, I spent $1,000.
Oh, I know. I already know. You just needed to pass,
it was
brother.
More. And this was in the early 2000s.
It
was in the early 2000s, and every penny counted.
We're going to say $1,200. So, yeah, I remember that.
So that extra 200 was expensive back then.
It was.
Absolutely.
It was.
So I'm going to go into this next question, right? And I thought this was pretty cool. So I asked this same question to, like I mentioned, I had this is my last series with this, and I asked every guy, why do they believe that your father thought she was a good fit? And his answer was, it actually wasn't his father. He said his family wasn't really excited about you like that. And he said that because he was getting out of a situation that was, he was extremely young. He had a child with another young lady, and they were just super young, and they were just trying to figure things out. And his mom just said, just be patient. He's like, it had nothing to do with you per se. It just had everything to do with, I think every parent would have probably said the same thing, just take your time. But for whatever reason, he felt like your actions and stability made him feel secure, and he had felt security behind that, which I thought was so powerful when you're talking about that young of an age and being able to even assure a man, like I mentioned just now with the whole break thing. So do you believe that security and reassurance and safety is important to help men feel good? And if that's the case, what would you say was maybe some of the things that you thought about or can think about to this day that you've done to kind of help him through that?
That's a really good question and a good point. I think when you're in it, you don't think of it that way. But I think what helped me and Odell is that we did meet in I guess, a remote place, right? Where we didn't have such a heavy influence of my family, such a heavy influence on his. And so we we established our world just with each other, right? Our foundation was just with us. And so even when distractions would come in, that foundation was based on what me and him established. And so he gave me what I need as a woman is protection and security. That's a non-negotiable for me. And so I reciprocated that, and I know that it needs to look different for him than what it needs to look like for me. But I also felt confident in being that space for him, when we first met, I didn't have to worry about anything. Odell made me feel like no one else mattered in the room, and his priorities aligned with things that were important to me. One of the first things that made him stand out, because I was 21, but I was dating older guys. I mean, that's what girls do. You think older, you think more established, you think this, you think that. And so I was a little bit hesitant because we were the same age, so I felt like maybe he lacked maturity or something. But when he mentioned to me, or when he would just talk about his son and the things that he wants and the things that he was doing and his family, I knew that that was something that I needed in my life. There are times when you know what you need, and there are times when you know what you want. And I knew that where I was going in life, I needed to make sure I had certain things in my circle, whether it was my friends, my relationship, or whatever. And Odell, he exhibited that. His love for his son, despite of what differences they had at the time or how things happened, his focus was not bitterness. It was to love. And at that time, at 21, and he's making money, he's over in a different country, he didn't have to choose that. And so I really adored that he did that. And my exchange of just wanting to support that was for me to be supportive to him. And even in stepping into a blended family, my focus was always based off of my love for him and just wanting to see him succeed in something that's a priority to him, which became a priority to me. And you see it in different situations. I'm pretty sure athletes, if successful marriages within, for athletes, you find that way where it's important to you because it's important to the whole picture. It's important to that puzzle, which is funny because for our anniversary, we went out to the Ivy Hotel in Baltimore. Loved it. It was really nice. And they had a puzzle with no picture. And so we're like, how the hell are we gonna put this together? And it was I think it was like a ship or something. So it's like water and all these different things. And so we put that puzzle together. And after we put it together, while we're putting it together, sometimes Odell gets aside more than me. And I'm like, oh, that's that one piece here. Or it wasn't a lot said. And he had his approach to putting a puzzle together from his own experience for putting puzzles together, and I use mine, and we put it together, right? And I think that we laughed about it and was like, that's what marriage is. It's like putting together a puzzle without a picture, right? You have experience from putting puzzles together from when you're a child or whatever, so you take that experience and you can apply it to your marriage. You take those tools and you apply it, but there's an idea of what it should look like, but that picture is not given to you. You know what I'm saying? When you say I do, or when you make that promise or anything to that extent. But, I think even with that example, the security, if I was to over question, why you put that puzzle piece there? No, that goes here. If I try to control that, then it wouldn't happen the way it should happen. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and let me stop you right there, right? Because we know people that are like that.
mm-hmm.
And even with that puzzle being, because what I'm hearing you say, as from a male's point of view, you provide, and for whatever reason, I'm going to assume that came from the male influence, or it doesn't necessarily have to be from a male's influence, just somebody's influence that talked to you. Because what I'm hearing, Odell, as well, is ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
All males have ego. And I used to tell my friend, a good friend, that, she's one of my best friends. I was like, I asked her, she's like, well, I struggle with ego stroking with men.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do too.
I said, well, here's the thing. Well, do you want compliments, right? What girl doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's the same act. It's the same act. Women want compliments. Men need their ego stroke. But all it is reassuring the other person.
Right.
So it's
It is.
reassuring. So allowing him
I
to
want
be
to
a
say
man.
something though, because as a
Go ahead.
woman, I struggle, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to paint this false picture that I came in and I was just this wonderful wife to Odell.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn that because
Mm-hmm.
I thought that what was maybe ego stroking, I thought that I was like, I don't want to do that because I don't
Right.
see him showing up and doing blah blah blah. I love my
Right.
father, but the type of woman that I am, and the things I want in life, I knew that I needed a man that saw me not just
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
his wife, as a possession, but as me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to want to continue on in my own path with certain things. So it is a challenge for women because that is a place of vulnerability, and that
Mm-hmm.
is something you have to be very careful with because you have to make sure you're stroking that right guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can
Mm-hmm.
stroke a man that you can stroke him all day, but if he's not, when I stroke Odell's ego, it is pleasurable in a
Mm-hmm.
sense to me
Mm-hmm.
because I know that I want him to feel good the same way he
Mm-hmm.
adores me in other ways. So I think it's just changing the narrative of what that ego stroking looks like. Some men it is saying this, some it's validating, some just like it's different for women, right? But the key thing is, you know, is this the right guy to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
ego stroke for? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because a
Talked about
lot of women, we walk around with a cape, and I don't mind taking my cape off, but trust does come different for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I can go out here and get this, that on my own. And me and Odell get into this all the time. A woman doesn't, 5 people in the office, remember Odell? So I gave this scenario
Mm-hmm.
that in there's 5 people in the office,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are times one person has to go out because they're sick or they can't fulfill this position, blah, blah, blah. And it gets down to 2 people. Those 2 people can manage that, but they can't do that capacity forever. And I think what happens with women, and I can only speak from a Black woman perspective, is that we get tapped out. It's too
Mm-hmm.
much for us to carry.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have to trust you. Can you just imagine when someone comes on board for work, you're not giving them passwords and everything right away. So it's like you have to build that trust. And once I
Right.
feel safe enough that I'll do it for you. It's
Mm-hmm.
no question. But we're 15 years, almost 20
Right.
years,
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
In the beginning, I wasn't. That was
Mm-hmm.
probably a thing that he struggled with me the most, and we went to therapy about
Mm-hmm.
that. And
Mm-hmm.
the advice for me from the therapist was I had to initiate more ways to be more affectionate to him,
Mm-hmm.
because my dad was not affectionate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He was a provider, he was a protector, but
Mm-hmm.
he was not affectionate. So I had to
Mm-hmm.
learn what that looked like for a man and not have a negative idea of it,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, he's soft or he wants this,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Which is unfair to
Yeah.
him from a
Mm-hmm.
male's perspective, because that can be damaging again to him,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
What were you about to say, Odell?
I was saying, man, you talked briefly about putting that time in, and she was saying that stroking the ego, you got to make sure you're stroking the right ego, and you invest in that time, and you got to make sure you're investing that time to the right person.
Right.
And the last episode, man, you talked about it. You asked me like, how did I know?
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the things that brought us together. And
Mm-hmm.
she spoke on it just now. She was like, you can spend a lot of time watering one flower and not attending to the other ones, and the one you
Mm-hmm.
need to do is the one that you're not watering. Like so,
Right.
like she spoke to,
Right.
like you
Right.
have to, right? Like you got to earn your way. and you got to show this woman that, you know what, I'm worth the investment.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do that, and I think I did that coming on with me in her relationship. I did it on early. I did it kind of early. So then she kind of loosened up on me and kind
Right.
of
Right.
back some breaks and other things came on. And because I didn't have that father that she had,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize that my mother was something that she wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So me and her both kind of fed off of that. Like I didn't see a woman doing this. I saw a woman doing this, and she was like,
Mm-hmm.
I saw this. I never seen a man doing this. Kind of compared in the beginning, not being mature, but as we got older, we realized that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because example something that we do know, but we didn't have an example of something that we need to learn.
Right.
So I had to learn how to be more handy. I had to learn about automotives. I had to learn about things that she expected me to know about, and as well as stuff she had to learn that I expected her to know about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's each one teach one, man. Like we kind of benefited from each other and growth in our relationship, and I'm happy that it happened that way.
Right, 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 right. And that goes into our next question that I asked you. So, what do you believe were the things that, as a wife, held your attention? So I did ask Odell that, and I said, well, what were some of the things that she did to hold your attention that made her go from, the girlfriend status to wife status? And kind of similar to some of the other answers that he mentioned earlier, but I mentioned earlier about him talking a lot about you providing safety and being different by showing you care. And I think for the conversations I've had with other men, a lot of the times, they talk a lot about not feeling that safe, not feeling like they can come home when they're struggling and doing what they need to do every day, and feeling like it's almost like they can't have a safe space to come into, right? And so be able to do that is probably, like you mentioned earlier, that's probably just who you were, but also at the same time you were growing into that person with having some type of guidance along the way. So I asked, with that safe space and you not knowing you're going from the transition, and I've asked those other guys that, like I mentioned before, but he said that happened so quickly. He had to
Mm-hmm.
make a decision quickly from making
Mm-hmm.
you from girlfriend to wife. But it was
Mm-hmm.
something about, I think he mentioned, I'm gonna mention the McDonald's
Yeah.
conversation, and he said that he's like, everything that you ordered was similar to, well, everything you ordered was exactly the same thing that
Mm-hmm.
he said that you were going to order. So can you talk a little bit about even how you felt doing the McDonald's series when you went to
Mm-hmm.
McDonald's? He ordered the chicken, I don't know, was it chicken McNuggets and the French fries,
Oh God, it was
and
a
then
fish
the
fillet.
apple pie and everything
Mm-hmm. With
from
a
what he
strawberry
said it
shake.
was. That's what you ordered as well. And he was like, after that, he was like, damn, I might have need to do this. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So yeah, we went to McDonald's, and see, when you're overseas, McDonald's is a cafe. It's nice. So we went to McDonald's, and he asked me what I wanted. He asked for my order first. And I said, let me get a fish fillet. And he was like, all right, what's your drink? And I said, strawberry shake. And he gave me a look. And I was like, what, you don't like shakes? And he was like, no, no, no. He said, anything else? I said, oh, yeah, apple pie. And he just like got really excited. I'm like, what do you? He's like, give me two of those. He got really, really excited. And he said that he orders the same thing. And we had a couple of instances where I felt like we were present enough to know, like, okay, this is something, because honestly, when we met, we weren't trying to. I think that did help us. It wasn't a lot of pressure to be like, oh, we're in a relationship. I think it just automatically happened. But so we had that part, but we had a lot of things in common that were fun. And when we talk about this a lot on our anniversary, is when we first met, I just felt like, well, everything that Odell doesn't like to do, I like to do. So we just compliment each other. It's so easy. It felt so easy when we were together in our world. And that was important for us. But I also want to say that there are things that I was to Odell, because I also was thinking about, if I was him, what would I want? Or if in the different roles that he's in, how can I support him? Because if it was me, I would want this type of support. And that helped us because we had a lot of things in common. But there were times where I missed it, right? And I wasn't checking for it. I was oblivious to it because I was only thinking my way. And I would say that was prior to me really understanding love languages and what was important to him versus, well, I'd rather you do this versus that. But I think I kept his attention. I was consistent. I think that the same thing I have in him, he has in me, and that is support, that is love, and not perfection. It's ours. I've always tried to make us a priority, and I felt like Odell has always made us a priority. At a young age, we never, I was just sharing with some friends when we first met. I was in Belgium and he was in Germany, and we didn't have Cash App back then and all this other stuff. And we opened up a bank account together, and Odell would save money so that I can come see him, on the train, or when my car broke down, he gave me his car. Those things made it easy for me to show up for him in a way that I know I can. I'm confident that, case in point too is, he was a bachelor, so he's over there eating Popeyes every day and blah, blah, blah. And he's young, and they're like, oh, your cholesterol. And I'm like, what? So I go buy those hot plates, and I make him food, because I would do that for myself, and I knew how to do that, so I did that. And but my love language is also service, right? So I like to service you. I like to make sure I consider you in this way, and Odell picks me up in a ways that I don't even love myself. You know what I mean? So we just organically was able to complement each other. I knew that being with him, he would make me better.
Right.
That didn't always mean it felt good. If you've been in sports, if you're going through college, anything, you have those nights where it's hard, but he held me accountable. He did not give up on me. Times I wanted to give up, right? Because it just felt, it was foreign. Some things was foreign. I don't want to fight. I'm just like, I'm gonna run and go somewhere else, and he didn't allow that to happen. But honestly, I don't know everything about me that kept his attention, but from my perspective, I just think it was my consistency that I also proved to him in those slow moments or hard times that I'm not going anywhere,
Right. And I want to add to that. I'm going to let Odell take over after I add to that. So I'm going to state the last question, and Reese, state the last question, and I want you to kind of take over. So I mentioned, how did you know she was the one, right? And we also talked about, what did that look like while dating, and how did you believe the transition again from girlfriend to wife and then to where you are today? And so I wanted to just really make you understand, like, even how he said it, make the audience, and then make me feel like I could see that. And I mentioned that to you several times, Odell, like how I can see you saying this to her and the person that I met almost 10 to 11 years ago, when you all, when we met the first time. And so I'm going to restate what he said, but I also want him to kind of comment on it. So he mentioned that, paying attention, you really did a good job of paying attention to him, right? And he also making him feel needed and wanted. And I think that those were the biggest things, because him and I talked about the feeling wanted and needed as men, and you made him feel like a man. And so with that said, in talking about, how do you go about doing that, and you all having that connection, probably instant connection with each other. Odell, do you want to add anything or to that when you talk about, like, I'm sorry, let me start over. He mentioned you also cooked, because I guess that's the way you cook. You cooked, and you also had your thing going on with your career. So you didn't let that overshadow, one didn't overshadow the other. He said, he's like, I wasn't used to this. I wasn't used to a woman cooking for me. He was like, cooking for me where I'm from, and also being able to balance those other things and needs and wants that he had. He definitely talked about, he felt respected. And so I wanted you to hear that from me, but I also want you to hear from him, how he felt about that time. And if you can.
Is it for me to reset, or you want
him if he wanted to add anything to
that?
Okay.
And definitely when we met, I felt like she told me a lot of her story about her prior relationships, right? And I listened, and I kind of added towards like, I'm not going to do that. I know that's a non-negotiable for her. She didn't like that. She didn't like how that happened. So you like being a man. You add that to your mental Rolodex, and you know the things that you don't want to do. You know the things that turns her off. But I found myself kind of like really, really caring more than I've cared before when I was meeting a female. Of course, you add that because you want to ultimately gain their trust. You're trying to court them. You want them to kind of like let their guard down. But this time it was much more than that. Like I felt like I was respected, like you said. Uh, I really felt like she was intentional, and I felt like she just wanted the best for me. And that was something that at 22 years old, I wasn't meeting women that had all those attributes. Something small, like I was supposed to be going up for the promotion board to make staff sergeant, and I had made E5 fairly quickly. And so my leadership started pushing me towards the next rank fairly fast. And I kind of like put it off. I'm like, okay, I'll get it. And every time she would come down to visit me, she was kind of like on me. Like she was like, "Why are you watching TV? Why are you playing the game? Aren't you supposed to be trying to study for the promotion board?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do that, but let me do this first." So she got to the point where she was like hiding my controllers. She was like unplugging the game, like really, really intentional about my career progression. And you got to understand, we haven't even been together 6 months at this time. So just caring about my son from a family dynamic, caring about my career, remembering things that I would tell her about me growing up and things that I liked, and she would just come and add it on. Like, I heard you like fish, okay? She came and made a meal without me asking her. She could cook. She was career driven. She had her own money. Like it was so many, all the fingers that I needed to point into the direction which I needed to go was pointing at her. So when she met me, like I told her, being young, I had a lot going on. I said, I got a lot going on. I had a few eggs in my basket. But as she started to come around more, and I started seeing these wonderful attributes in her, and seeing how wonderful of a person she was, and how much she loved me, and it showed through all of her actions. I said, only a fool would keep trying to maintain these relationships with these women that aren't doing the things that she's doing,
Right.
and I don't see a future in. So I saw a future, just like she said. She saw something in me. There was definitely something in her that only a blind man could miss. So I just decided, and not saying that all of a sudden in that moment that I did all the right things, because being young still kind of screwed up a little bit. But I knew in my mind in that moment that she was the one. Even though if I wasn't ready to settle down 100%, I knew that when I wanted to settle down 100%, then it was with her.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, PJ, how does that? I'm sure you've heard that story several times, but maybe you heard it differently. But what would you say towards that, and to our listeners and audience about, you feeling that space, or maybe somebody has never felt that space before, but how to handle it in today's society. We all know society, we know how we grew up, but today's society is a little bit different. So, what would you say to women who are trying to bag their man in this society and of culture of non-marriage, or a culture of being independent or not driven to be married and things of that nature?
First, I think that you have to be honest with yourself. There was a time, even the way that we got married, I had my boundaries. I had my things where I understood my worth, right? And so I wasn't necessarily a career woman, but I had my own path. I had my own, I didn't have to lean on Odell from a day-to-day perspective. I wanted Odell. And I think that is a difference, right? And that can be a very vulnerable place to find from a male or female perspective. So when I say that I wanted him and I didn't need him, I also couldn't throw in his face, I don't need you. I wouldn't get the best part of Odell if I fit that into him. So it's a song that Jill Scott has about, like, we need you, and it's understanding what you need from a man versus the need. Like, I don't need him to function day to day, but yet I do, you know, and that I feel as though we are blessed because both of us were honest with ourselves, like Odell mentioned, and committing to me. That doesn't mean that he was ready for commitment, honestly, right? So he knew that he found something special, and he still had to do some shadow work for himself. And there are things within myself I had to do some shadow work with too. But ultimately, we knew that we found something special, and that was irreplaceable. And so you have to act on it. And what I do find myself hearing a lot is that you hear one side of that, and I don't know what it takes from a man to really be honest and say, I found something special. And I don't know if it's because there's a different type of options out there. Again, we met in Germany, and Odell had options. He's a black man in Germany, military, got it going on. You know, he had to be honest with himself and understand what he needs. Like he said, I don't mimic what his mom is, and he's not necessarily what my male figures were, but he was what I need in order for me to succeed or feel like he possessed what I needed in a partner, to accomplish things in life that I wanted,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And
So
I think that's important. I think that's important. What you said was, really trying to find out what you needed. One of the things that I'm not sure if you hear this from other people a lot, but I hear that people, it's all about what they want.
yeah.
So the difference, you're talking about a lot of what you need as opposed to what you want. In our society is going to what we want, in the sense of what you need is healthy. What you need is going to help, is going to have longevity on it. And what you need, for a lot of people, they don't know what they need. They know what they want. And I think that's the toughest part.
Now
And you
they know
mentioned
what they
earlier,
need.
having that accountability and understanding who you are first. And then, because I don't think, if you, again, you were younger, but you still had that guidance. I don't see a lot of relationships like yours or anybody else, is if they can't provide to the other person, and especially if we're talking to a man, if you don't know what you need, PJ, how can you tell the man what he needs, and how can he provide that for you? And that's some of the things that we talk about on this channel, as far as what men go through, and women go through, but like what that looks like for us and how we relay that, because for some reason it's not coming together these days for both of us listening and understanding. And we don't have that accountability. And a lot of times accountability is not really set in society. So how do we go about getting that? So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah. I mean, but when I met him, I had to drive to Frankfurt because we didn't stay in the same country. And so again, we didn't have all the technology you have today. So I MapQuest, and I was like, okay, Frankfurt, I can meet you at Frankfurt. And so we met at Frankfurt. He was late. But so we got there. We had a really good weekend, but I had talked to him on the phone for about 2 or 3 months before we saw each other physically. And so I think that helped us because I got to know him, right? I always knew that I wanted somebody that made me laugh. I knew that I dated guys that let me do what I want to do. And I don't want that because I'm gonna run over them. So I wanted somebody with some swag, athletic. And when I saw him, I said to myself, I can marry him. And I never ever thought about marriage. I didn't think about it because I was afraid of it, because I didn't see anything. I felt like it was just locking you down, where you become a man's possession. So I didn't have a positive outlook on marriage. But with Odell, I don't know, I just felt something about him where I can let the guard down. And to be honest with you, in those beginning years, my friends was like, girl, why you giving him all this? Because they having fun. And I'm sitting here being stepmom at 20
Yep.
something years old.
Yeah.
I didn't have any kids. And so a lot of people didn't understand my why. Again, I think that accounts to why we did push through, is because we never needed validation for our whys. You know what I mean? We often did it just because we understood it. And that's still to this day, some decisions we make, my parents may not agree with, or
Right.
his
Right.
family may feel a different way. And we are okay with that, because as
Right.
long
Right.
as Odell
Got
understands,
you.
and that I understand where he's coming from. That, I mean, that's in so many parts of our lives. It comes to when it's parenting, finances, career move. I don't make a move without having a conversation with Odell. I'm not saying that he always
Absolutely.
gets a
Yeah.
conversation first, but I don't make a move without him, because it's me and him, and we teach the kids that, when we go out on our dates, bye.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can eat peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Y'all eat good throughout the week. You
Right.
know, so
Exactly.
we make time for each other. He makes time for me. I'm a priority, and I think it's something that I didn't see growing up. I just saw people being married and not
Right.
happy. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
So we knew that in order to be something different, we had to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Jackson, you want to close us out before I tell our audience good night?
No, just kind of piggybacking off what she said. I don't think that was being shown, like the beauty of a relationship, and it's also the reason why I think a lot of relationships aren't working these days.
Right.
You don't go on Instagram and you don't see marriage, right? They don't show the beauty of it. They also don't show the work that's involved in maintaining.
Absolutely.
Right. So you go in there, you can get your models, you can get your workout fitness, get all the things that I think the young people, even the older people my age, are paying more attention to. But they ultimately want the relationship. But it's a lot of legwork that they don't see, and they don't know, and that a lot of the times they're not willing to put in. And I think we need to advertise and we need to speak about relationships more in a positive setting, and speak about what it takes and the work you have to put in the early stages to make sure that you have a successful one. Because this is a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I regret any portion of it, and I think that we went through it. We drowned out the outside noise because there was a lot of outside noise, like she said. But I'm looking at it now. A lot of the outside noise still outside.
Yeah.
Right. Invested this time and this energy, and everything we've invested, and now we're at a place where we're at to be able to be on your show, speaking about the things we're talking about. So I'm looking forward to trying to get the message out and showing the world relationships from a more positive setting and letting them know that it's hard, but anything you want in life is going to be hard if it's worth having.
Absolutely. You know, it's funny now. We grew up. We have the kids are growing up in a world with reality shows where they don't see a lot of positive relationships. We grew up in the time where it was all relationships and they showed positive. So I want us to continue to do that because somebody had to do that for us. Right. And so I really want to say thank you so much for being here, being able to be vulnerable and talk about your story, and hopefully it's helped other people who are going through it, already in it, and want to continue to show like you can get here and you can continue to push through, and know it's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy. But I think from what you said, accountability and making sure that you love on one another and understanding is so important. So anybody want to say?
I always want to say something. I think that I want to just truly express that it's two sides, right? You know, there's things that I believe that that women can learn from. Oh, you know, Odell often shares with my friends and vice versa with me as a woman. And I think the biggest thing is knowing what safe space looks like. And we talked about that recently because we are constantly going through transition, you know, and right now we're going through a transition where people have those times in a relationship where it's like infidelity and cheating and blah blah blah. We don't have that, right? And so just you think, oh, coast is clear, it's fun land, right? And so, but this is honestly where how you handle things in those other levels of marriage, our relationship, is when it really applies because life hits you. You know, you start to have to care for things outside of your marriage, not even your kids, you know.
Right.
You have your parents, you have other things that come in, and that can be a distraction to a different level, right? For him as a provider, you know, what if work is unsteady or things like that, you know? So I just want to say that you have to identify what a safe space looks like for you as an individual, and then ask that your partner, what does that look like for them? Because it can be different for everyone. And if you assume that, then you assume that you got it going on and that they're the problem. Right. And so Odell doesn't always like to have those conversations, not because he's just like, I don't know, just listen to me, you know. But if you don't say that to me, then I honestly can't say that I'm confident and that I know that I'm providing you that. But if you can spend that time with yourself and then communicate it, then I think that helps, you know. So I think it takes both sides to understand what that needs to look like and how you can provide that, you know.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for being on here. I'm hoping to have you back to the Brother to Brother show. You all did a fantastic job. One of the things I heard you say at the end is communication. Right, we have to learn how to communicate as an individual first, and then so you can bring that into new relationships. But again, thank you so much for coming on. We'll see you next time at the Brother to Brother show. We'll have another group just like this, a lovely couple on, and having positive conversations about relationships to come. Thank you, listeners and viewers, for coming on to the show. You can find us at tomorrowsmen.com. On Facebook at Tomorrow's Men, and on Instagram at Tomorrow's Men. Please click and subscribe to the button below. I'm your host, K-Mo. Until we meet again, know we love you. Work with us.